All right, well, what better way to spend a Friday afternoon than in the heart of Duluth with Coach Mike Randolph. Mike, you're born and raised Duluth boy, and you brought home 2 state championships to Duluth East, as well as 18 state tournament appearances. You have amassed 707 career wins, which puts you at the pinnacle of the great high school hockey coaches in the state, or near to it in terms of that measurement. I want to take you back to the 60s. So you grew up in Duluth and played at Cathedral.
Yes.
So what can you tell us about your how you got involved in hockey as a boy, and what the hockey system was like in Duluth in those days?
Well, you didn't have phones.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't have TV, a lot of TV. Everybody basically watched Ed Sullivan on Sunday night, if you did watch TV, black and white. So I'm aging myself right away. So basically I grew up in a large family, 3 sisters, 3 brothers. And during the winter you played hockey. And my parents took me down to a rink called Dorchester. We couldn't afford equipment. I grew up very poor. I couldn't afford any of the equipment, in fact. And so Dorchester was kind enough to borrow me skates. I had girl skates, red girl skates. My brother had white girl skates. And so we grabbed anything we could get, and I just gravitated to skating first of all, and then playing hockey. So I would spend all day at Dorchester until the teams would practice, and I got kicked off, and then I'd go play at another rink, Central Field it was called, and it was more skating there. So I remember walking up there, which is over a mile, and we would play pom-pom or tag or something like that. And that's basically how I learned to skate. And I played all the way through the Dorchester Association. Great association. We great coaches, great mentors, and that's where I got my love for the game. And then my dad told me prior to going into high school, he said, if you make the team, when you make the team, if you make the team, I will buy you a new pair of skates. And back then, the skates to wear were called tacks.
CCM?
Yep.
Uh-huh.
And I couldn't believe that my dad said that. And I don't think my dad planned on me making the team as a 9th grader, but I made it as a 9th grader. And I remember literally sleeping in those skates. I was so excited to get a new pair of skates because everything that I wore, skates, shin pads, gloves, was all hand-me-downs. Mm-hmm. So that was my first brand new piece of equipment, and I was very excited. So I played at Duluth Cathedral, 9th grade, played all the way through senior year, and played with some great players. And I just fell in love with the game. And then after playing, I wanted to stay in the game, and coaching was the next step.
Yeah. So who were the hockey powers at that time and at the high school level?
Hill Murray was good,
Mm-hmm.
really good. And we could only play in a Catholic tournament.
Oh, okay.
So they had a Catholic tournament
Yep.
and a public tournament.
Really?
And
Yeah.
we played an independent schedule. So we played Warroad, Henry Boucher.
Mm-hmm.
Edina was great back then as well. Willard Eichler coaching.
Going to ask you about him later, but yeah.
But at the Catholic level, it was usually Hill, Murray, and Cathedral.
Okay.
All 4 years of my high school career, we got to the finals and ended up playing Hill, Murray. St. Thomas was good. Mm-hmm. Benilde was good. Mm-hmm. The regular teams. But, they would play the Catholic tournament between Aldridge Arena and Duluth Arena. And then the following weekend, they'd play the public tournament. And they always wanted the 2 champions to play each other.
Yeah.
But it never happened. And but we would play an unbelievable schedule because, again, we played independent teams. So
Yeah.
yeah.
What was the scene like in Duluth? Was there East and Denfeld and Central and
There was
Cathedral?
East, Denfeld, Cathedral, Morgan Park, which is out west as well. Just a lot of hockey players go around.
Yeah.
And good feeder systems, good youth programs back then. And unfortunately, the numbers aren't the same anymore.
Yeah.
Like here as well as up on the Iron Range and a lot of parts of northern Minnesota, but grew up at a great time and where hockey was, played during the winter and everybody really got into it. And, we had great weather for it too. They fit the weather,
When did that all start to come to this area? I mean, I know that didn't they play like the first state tournament back in like the 40s or something like that? But like how did this hockey culture start to materialize here in Duluth and the surrounding area?
Well, I can only speak from Lord Chester. They Tommy Williams is his brother Butchie. I played with. I think that was, and Rip Williams, their dad, was my pony coach. It was pony back then, and just really dedicated people, parents, hockey people that really took care of the outdoor rinks, took care of the all the things that go along with outdoor ice, which is a lot of work.
Yeah.
And somebody's got to do it.
A lot of flooding and things like that.
And the thing about when I went to Duluth Cathedral, we didn't practice inside. We practiced outside.
Yep.
And we took care of the ice. We had what was called a Zamberni. Bernie Peffer made it. It was just a sweeper.
Yeah.
And lots of shovels and lots of flooding, and we lived at that rink. And I think that had a lot to do with our success at that level. We used to flip for the wind because it was really windy up there, and we would scrimmage or do drills, and we'd flip coins. We'd go literally into the warming shack. They had a warming shack that they built for us in between drills and in between scrimmaging when you're out there or not. So you wouldn't freeze. So I
remember some of those practices being a kid and being out at, there was a rink, there was a rink out at Park Point that we used to practice at sometimes. And then of course, Congdon is where I had the elementary school, and they had a big association there too. And
I think that was a driving force of what you're just talking about. Just the, like, Morgan Park, again, had a feeder system. Morgan Park's not even open anymore. Denfeld had a feeder system.
Yep.
Central had a feeder system. East had a feeder system.
Yeah.
Cathedral kind of picked off.
Sure. Kind of like what Hill Murray does currently.
Exactly.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And so it just fed off each other. And it was very, very popular. The winners were, and the success of a lot of the teams. I was fortunate enough to play on a Pee Wee team that went to the National Pee Wee Championship, and 5 guys on that team ended up playing pro hockey at some level.
Right.
On a Pee Wee team back then. And there weren't as many pro teams back then.
Right.
So that's just speaks to the involvement by families and players and the commitment from hockey people to make sure that outdoor ice was top notch.
Right. And these associations that we're talking about, like you mentioned Lower Chester, I mean, the ones I can remember too were like Portman, was there Glen Avon, and a few other ones like that. Are those still in existence today?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And you say I mean, I always just thought of it as just such a cool system of that, like these little neighborhood associations where everybody kind of knew each other from that area. They would come together, and our neighborhood's going to play your neighborhood at hockey, and I mean, that's just, it creates these great rivalries. But then you also kind of get to know who all the players are that way. And somebody kind of looking down at that from a level of, like, to say the varsity coach could start to identify who the good players are at a certain point and start to think about how are we going to get these guys together.
Right. And it still works that way. Again, the numbers aren't what they were.
Yeah.
And it's set up a little bit differently than it was back then. Now there's double A teams at the Pee Wee level, Bantam level.
Yeah.
So they'll
Double A,
all start playing at, I think they call it mites now.
Yeah.
And they all cross the city, play each other, and to that level, it's kind of and squirt to a point.
Yeah.
Although they keep figuring out how they're going to run the squirt program, because there's such a difference between some kids start skating at 4,
right,
while others don't start skating until they're 6, 7. So they want to keep everybody in the game, so they find different levels. But anyhow, it funnels to Pee Wee. Like, I can speak to East because I coached there.
Yeah.
We had a Pee Wee double A team. Most of those kids end up playing on the varsity high school team at some point because they're the top kids. They're the kids that put time into the game.
The best of the best, right?
Yeah. Then it goes up to Bantam double A, and usually it looks the same as the Pee Wee double A. You'll see an odd player that develops, but it funnels right to the high school. So speaking to what you said, you kind of get an idea what's coming your way. And I was very blessed at East to have good players come in my way on a regular basis. So I can't say enough about what they did at that level to make it look good at our level, the high school level.
Well, I mean, your record speaks for yourself in terms of success, and so part of that success obviously is being able to identify the right players and kind of get them in to where they need to be. But so what are some of the first things that you start to notice about, say, a Pee Wee player that kind of makes you think, that guy might actually develop into something? What are some of the first things that would catch your eye?
Skating, for sure. You notice the skating. You notice the skill set, how they handle the puck, their shot, their toughness, their love for the game.
Right.
It all comes out in itself if you watch them enough times.
Yeah.
And we did spend enough time watching them, and it usually carries over in up in the Bantams. And but parents have a lot to do with that too, if they're going to continue to develop, because it takes everybody working together and bringing out the best in their child. And it's a challenge, because it's a team sport. It's not an individual sport. It's a team sport. And if you're fortunate enough around being on a team with really good players around your son, like I had my son, one of my sons played hockey, and I always wanted my son.
Jake, right?
Jake, yeah. I always wanted him to be around better players. I didn't want him to be the best player. I didn't want him to be the leading scorer or anything like that. I wanted him to be pushed. And so there's a lot of parents who look at it differently. And sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't work out. But the biggest thing is you got to keep reminding yourself it's a team sport, and you're going nowhere else without the players around you. So,
what's the right level of, I don't want to say pressure, but what's the right level of encouragement that a parent can give a child if the idea is that you want to see if the child has what it takes to be a varsity player?
I don't think there's any certain level. I think you got to be aware of whether your son or daughter is doing it for the right reasons. In other words, they're not doing it for you. They're not living through you.
And you're not living through them.
Exactly. And I had two sons, one who at the Pee Wee level really didn't embrace the game like Jake did. His name was Jimmy. And when he was going to try out for the Pee Wee team, I had a hard conversation with him because his best friends were going to make the double A team. And I knew he wasn't going to make the double A team. So I prepared him going into tryouts, because tryouts can be very stressful for these kids, especially at the Pee-wee level when it's the first time of trying out. And that was his first time trying out. So I wanted to kind of give him a forewarning what's ahead of him. And then we branched out into other conversations, and I basically, because on my way home, I lived by Portman. So I would drive by Portman, and his buddies would be down there playing. And I'd say, Jake, I'd drive by Portman on purpose. Jake, you want to go home, get your equipment, and go down there and skate? And he never really showed an interest in that. So I always felt that he really wasn't I felt like he was playing the game just because I was a coach at East. And I didn't want him to do that. So I gave him an out in our conversation. Jim, you don't have to do this. And he decided to quit, and he was our manager from 8th grade on. Where Jake, I'd drive by Portman, let's go. I'd have to put his equipment in the car because I knew what his answer would be. Because I never wanted to push my kids into any sport.
Sure.
I just wanted them to play the sports that they'd love to play if they chose to do that. They want to be in band, or they want to be like my daughters were in cheerleading, so be it. I just wanted them involved in the school in another way than just going to school. So I wanted that window of time between getting out of school and my wife and I getting home to be somewhere, whether it's student council, whether it's band, whether it's cheerleading, no matter what it is, fill that void there, because that's where a lot of trouble happens.
So the desire to play has to come from within. It's not something that can just be, I don't want to say forced, but it's not something
you can't buy it, you can't force it, you can't, because sooner or later they'll have a hard fall. So
right. Well, okay, so you played a little juniors in Canada. I noted that you were a 40-goal scorer for is it Muskegon?
Muskegon Mohawks.
Muskegon Mohawks scored 40 goals a year for them. We were talking before the show that you had been a part of the 1976 United States Olympic team, that was an incredible experience, I'm sure.
Yeah, it was incredible,
playing with some great players, and Coach Bob Johnson was the coach of that team as well.
Yep.
Eventually, you got into coaching, and I noted that it seemed like, at least the first one that's mentioned on the internet, is that you were an assistant coach at Denfeld before you started over at East. So, can you talk a little bit about the rivalry between Denfeld and East, and how it's sort of evolved over the years, and what it was like to kind of start out at Denfeld and then move across town over to East?
Well, I started out. Actually, I coached at St. Scholastica.
Oh yeah, I did see that.
3 years, and UMD 3 years. 1 year under Gus, and then unfortunately Mike Surdich passed recently. Coached under him 2 years. Ended up at Denfeld, and the rivalry with Denfeld and East is still there. It's never changed. The heritage is full to that day. When I coached at East, I know I read articles. I follow East from afar. When they play Denfeld, it's a huge rivalry, and I don't think that'll ever change. They both have good teams this year, and when they play, it's going to be a great game. So we beat them in the playoffs the year we went to the state tournament, my second year at Denfeld at the deck, and that was quite a game. And I think that really there was a little doubt that in that program that they could beat East. I think that brought it to another level, that they could beat East and beat anybody. In fact, again, we went to the state tournament that year. We had a pretty good goalie named Robbie Stauber, so that didn't hurt. And we had Billy Stauber on the team.
Gopher goalie, and
Mike Vukanich was a big time player. His dad was Bill, the coach, the head coach. He went to Harvard. So we had a very solid team. We didn't have a deep team, but we had a very solid team. And ended up, we got beat by Burnsville in the semis. and ended up, I think, beating Hibbing in consolation. So that was my first opportunity to go to a state tournament, which was really exciting.
Yeah.
And it was really exciting for the community and for all the parents and the kids, and it's just a neat experience. You really have to go there to realize how big a deal it is. You can watch it on TV all you want till you're right down in that setting.
The old Civic Center.
The old Civic Center, yep. And you don't realize how big it really is. And it was really big then because it was only one class hockey.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
back then. So tougher to get there.
So those days, I recall, because UMD had an incredible team too with Mike Surdich, and I remember we used to go to those games at I don't know what it was called back then, but the old wherever the UMD played at that time, the arena, I think, or something like that. We used to get these pins, the deck, and it would be like Rick Costi, the goalie, and Brett Hull, and Bill Watson, and Tom Curvers, and Matt Christensen, Norm McIver.
I mean, just those names, you saying those names. Look where all those guys ended up playing. You know, it's incredible.
Yeah, and then they lost that disappointing national championship game with that icing call with that. I think they were playing Bowling Green or something like that. But all those amazing players And then the high school was, the high school programs were in full swing. I mean, that was really kind of a golden age of hockey in Duluth.
Yeah, well, that's what springboards the program and gets good numbers. When UMD's really good, or the high school program, and it doesn't matter who it is, because once the state tournament's set, like if Denfeld's there and East is not there, you cheer for Denfeld.
Right.
East is there, Denfeld's not there. Everybody comes together as a city and cheers for the local team.
Sure.
And then when UMD is really good, if you were to map out the numbers at the youth level after UMD does really well, wins a national championship, or after a high school team does really well, it just more kids. It's a great selling point. More kids want to play the game.
Right.
So
makes a lot of sense.
It just comes together. It goes together. And I think that's the reason Duluth continues to put out excellent hockey teams. And, Scotty does an unbelievable job with his program. I mean, you don't have to go. I mean, you look at the guys that are coming in now to his program. They're all local kids, too.
Yeah.
So the younger kids can identify with these kids because they watched these kids play at the high school level, and now they're playing at UMD, and some go on and play in the NHL. So
and that's the way it should be.
The game sells itself.
Yeah. And I kind of hope that we see, because now I'm over in Park Rapids, which is just about an hour south of Bemidji, and I'm a season ticket holder for BSU. The Beavers, and they've had a lot of success recently too. And I'm kind of hoping that that sort of catches on, because it's that area is not known for hockey as much as it is over here down the cities or anything like that. And but I think that's a great point, that they see the success at the collegiate level and they want to emulate that, and they want to be like that. So that's awesome. So. Okay, you coached for 31 years as the head coach of
32
Duluth East. Okay, I guess 88 to 21. So, so how did you get hired for that job, and who hired you, and what was that process like?
Well, I got hired for it, and then they took it away from me. I met with the East principal, and of course, coming off playing for the Olympic team, coming off coaching at UMD. Coaching at Glasgow, we won a national championship my first year there. Getting to the state tournament at Denfeld. You start building a resume.
You had the qualifications.
And so I met with the principal and the AD at the Bellows, which is no longer there. It's on London Road. And they offered me the job, said they're going to get me the job. Now, I wasn't part of the teachers union. So they gave me the job. It was in the paper, blah, blah, blah. Within 24 hours, they took the job away because I wasn't part of the teachers union, and there was a teacher in the union that wanted the job. So he got the job. I didn't have the job. And then 2 years later, he quit, and then I got the job.
Okay.
And within 24 hours, I had a teaching job.
Yeah.
So I was...
You joined the union.
I was part of the teachers union. And actually, I think at that time, they were... they didn't have enough teachers like in the years ago that wanted or willing to get into coaching. So they changed that rule where you could hire somebody outside the bargaining unit.
Yeah.
But at the time, the first time I got it, they didn't get it. So anyhow, I got it that time, and then, to stay 32 years, I'm really proud of that. You won't see that often anymore. It's very difficult to do that, and that's probably the thing I'm most proud of, is that I lasted in one program for 32 years.
Longevity there.
Yeah.
So in your fourth, and I think this is right, but I think it was in your fourth full year of coaching at Duluth East, you led the team to a state final. And just to put that in context, I think the last time that East had even been to the state tournament was 1974, and now we're in 1992 or so, somewhere in there. So it had been a long time since East had been there, and you reached the championship game. So tell us about how that season went, and kind of what led up to that level of success.
Well, I'll go back to the interview with the principal. The community wanted me, but the school district really didn't know if they wanted me or not. And I'm in an interview, and an interview, you kind of get a feeling whether they're really interested in you or not. They always end an interview with, do you have any further comments or questions or anything? And I was real honest with them. Name was Mike White. He was the principal there. And I'm sitting in there with him, and I don't even remember. The AD was probably in there and a few other people. And I just said, I sense that you really don't want to hire me. The only reason that I'm in here is because the community wants me to coach this team. And I know that they're really hungry for a state tournament berth. So I'm going to give you an out. If we don't go to the state tournament as me, the head coach, within 5 years, you can fire me. Because we plan on going to the state tournament, and they haven't been there for 17 years, so we're hoping to get there within that 5-year window. Well, we made it.
Yeah.
And he was down at the state tournament, and he was having a good old time because he hadn't ever been to a state tournament, and the whole
Principal
city
White,
was
you're
down.
talking,
And I went up to him. I remember one night I saw him at a gathering, and I said, "Mike, do you remember what I told you during the interview?" "No, I don't remember." And he was feeling pretty good at the time.
Sure.
And I said, "I told you we'd get here within 5 years, so you could fire me." "Oh yeah. So that goes back, but I think that again, you could see this group coming. We got a player from Silver Bay. His name was Rusty Fitzgerald. He ended up playing in the NHL. And he transferred from Silver Bay to Duluth East. That helped a lot on our depth. And it was just a tough group. I had probably 12 guys over 6'2", or around 6'2".
Wow, yeah.
And we were real physical. And we in the semifinal or the quarterfinals, we played Richfield against Darby Hendrickson.
Darby Hendrickson, yeah, sure.
And Danny Hendrickson, his brother. And they were picked to win it, and we beat them 5-1.
Yeah.
And we beat them up pretty good, and they weren't happy, but we had refs from Roseville. So they liked the northern style, so they let us get by with a little bit more, I guess. And then
northern style being a little bit more physical.
And then we played
finesse players in the city. Okay.
And that's how we had to play.
Right.
We couldn't go. We'd get in a track meet with them, and we'd be in trouble.
Right.
So we ended up playing Burnsville in the semi, beat them, and then Hill Murray, we played in the finals. We were up 3-1 going in the third period, and all of a sudden they started calling penalties on us, and
You got jobbed.
Yeah. Well, they kept the whistles out of their mouth, but then all of a sudden they found some calls in the third period, and Hill Murray had a really good team, and a really good power play.
Sure.
They beat us in the finals, But that was a springboard to our success.
Like to be there and so close that you could almost taste it, right?
Well, here's the thing: when we played in the section final was scheduled for down in the cities, but two northern teams, Cloquet and us, ended up in the finals. Mm-hmm. So they didn't have tickets printed or anything. They were football tickets. It's the largest crowd ever in the deck.
Right.
And Dave Spihar, who played in the 95 team that won the state tournament,
they
were Pee-wees then.
Okay.
And they drove back. They were playing in their region tournament.
Yeah.
He tells me this story, and I don't know if they had running time or not, but they got the game over right away, drove right to that game.
Right.
And that's an example of younger kids seeing that and seeing the excitement of the deck being packed and your team winning and going to the state tournament, following through the state tournament. The nice thing about Minnesota is they shut down all youth hockey during the state tournament. Mm-hmm. It's the whole focus is on the state tournament.
Yeah.
And so that was the first time Duluth East had ever been there. And again, it's one-class hockey.
Yeah.
And we got to the finals, and the whole city was down there. You could have shot a cannon through here. Everybody went down there for that game and that tournament. So that springboard our success at that level.
Success breeds success, right?
Yep.
I just want to interject a question here quick because I thought of it before and I want to ask it and I don't want to forget. But what do you think about what do you think it's better to have just the one class? I know there's this debate in the state about, we used to like to see, Roseau play Jefferson or something like that, I guess that's theoretically possible now because Roseau went AA, or like Warroad against Jefferson or something like that, was that better? Were those days better than they are now, where we have two?
Well, I think the numbers were better.
Yeah,
I don't think you had as many kids leaving high school hockey as they are now.
Yeah, mm-hmm.
I'm for 2-class hockey for sure.
Yeah,
I'm not for 3-class.
No,
I know there's been discussion about 3. I don't believe in watering it down, but I believe 2-class hockey is a good thing.
Yeah,
In fact, Class A tournament was excellent last year. Well, more kids get an opportunity to play at the show, and where they probably go in. What you want is as many kids, when they start out their high school season, their goal is to play in a state tournament.
Right.
You want as many kids to go in that locker room at the beginning of the year and be able to say, we got a shot, at least. At least we got a shot, not where we don't have any shot. And if you keep it at one class, there's fewer and fewer kids being able to have that opportunity to play. So,
and it is I think it's just as exciting, the both tournament. I think it was 2 years ago, that final between Warroad and Matamidi was one of the most incredible hockey games I've ever seen.
Last year's single A tournament was more competitive than last year's double A tournament.
Yeah.
The Edina Chanhassen game looked like a college game.
Yeah.
That was a heck of a game. Cretin was really good. There were some really good teams, and there were some surprises.
Yeah.
Which is great. Yeah. Makes it always great.
Always fun. Mm-hmm.
But that single A tournament last year was excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent. St. Cloud Cathedral, Hermantown.
Yeah.
Matamita's there every year, so it was fun to watch. And it's drawing more and more people every year.
And it's just, the more hockey, the better.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
All right. So 1995, that was your first championship team that you won with Duluth East. So I want to talk a little bit about the pathway that you got there. So, because you kind of went through a who's who of hockey in the state. So you started with Tom Satterdahlin and Bloomington Jefferson. And I think that I didn't even realize this before I started to do a little research on this, but the team that you guys beat there had players such as Ryan Treble, Mark Parrish, and Ben Clymer, who all became pros, or at least top D1 players. They had won 3 straight state titles up to that point, You guys got in the state tournament with them and smoked them 5-0. So how did you get your guys up for that game? And I mean, talk about the team in the context of getting them ready for a state tournament like that.
Well, I'm a firm believer that you have to, when you know a good group's coming, which I knew this group was going to be a good group.
Yeah.
They were successful at the Pee Wee level. They were successful at the band level. So you, as a coach, you have to identify what you're up against.
Yeah.
Knowing Jefferson is one of the top teams in the state at the time, you got to get on the ice with them before the state tournament. Yeah. Whether it's a scrimmage or a game, it doesn't matter, but you have to get on the ice.
Intimidation factor, removing it.
You got to get over that hump. And the other thing that's really good is our youth program plays against. So these guys had played against these players and this program coming up through the youth program. So the intimidation part when they went into the first game was it wasn't a factor, I didn't believe. And they had heard, the other thing is we were under the radar. We weren't supposed to win that game. All the pressure was on Jefferson. And we got off to a great start, and they just never really got going. And they were in shock that the quarterfinals, they're going to go to Mariucci or wherever they went. And I think back then they went to Mariucci, and they were done. And I just had a great leadership, very competitive kids, and just kids who believed in each other. Right. They were close-knit. They came all the way up through the program. They cared about each other, and it was a special team. See, that's what separates, in a lot of ways. I coached at St. Thomas Academy the last 3 years.
Sure.
Kids come from all over, where that 95 team, they played all the way up. Bottom played at Glen Avon. But when they got to the Pee Wee team, it's Pee Wee team, Bantam team, high school team, pretty much the same kids all the way up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And was Spihar from Glen Avon then, or?
Yes.
He was.
Yeah.
So, and that performance by him in that state tournament, I think has got to be one of the all-time greatest, if not the all-time greatest single-player achievement in the history of the high school state tournament, because he had a hat trick in 3 games in that tournament. So after you dispatched the Jefferson with Tom Satterdahl, another legendary coach that's up on the list of the all-time greats, then you get into playing another storied program, the Edina Hornets, actually the defending state champions this year. And you run into that squad, and Spihar nets another hat trick in that game. So is this sort of the same thing? Had you guys already played Edina coming up, and so I mean, you must have felt good about what happened with Jefferson, but so what kind of things were you saying to the team, to kind of get them back down to earth and realize that they have to play another incredibly good team from a good program? Well,
I think that they've been in enough state tournaments, again, at the youth level, that they knew that you can't. I mean, we needed that Jefferson game. I think the Jefferson game, what it did is it springboarded us through the tournament in believing that we could get this done. We come out of the Edina game, and the first shift we score a goal, and we get rolling. And we started steamrolling Edina, and they just our guys just carried the momentum over, and it wasn't really a game, to be honest with you. I mean, both games. I mean, we dominated both games
from start to finish. Yeah.
And then we're playing a team in the championship game in Moorhead. And they've got a guy named Matt Cullen on their team, who's a great player.
Sure.
And again, we had seen Moorhead. We left at 3 a.m. to go up and scrimmage Moorhead at 8 a.m. up in their rink at the beginning of the year.
Okay.
So we had been on the ice with Moorhead and Jefferson. Probably two of the favorites going into the state tournament. So again, it wasn't our first time playing against these guys, and I think that helped. that identity, just knowing what you're up against. And the Moorhead was an unbelievable hockey game. I mean,
back and forth.
I mean, yeah, and then add Spihar's penalty shot.
Yeah,
I mean,
I was watching that this
what a
week.
great
There's
story.
a video up that shows that, and that breakaway, and he got
Yeah.
tripped up and scored that goal. I mean, just what an incredible game.
Yeah, it was. It was an incredible tournament, and again, a springboard to the program to carry it on.
Can you share at all sort of your memory of some of the pieces of the speech that you may have given to the team after you had won the tournament back in the locker room?
I can't remember a lot. It was a very emotional time. It was really happy for the kids because I knew how hard they worked and I knew how much they cared about each other. That's what I loved about it the most, is how much they cared about each other. And a lot of them were done playing hockey after that. So it's an emotional time, win or lose, with kids, because few are going on and play beyond high school. We had a few on that team, obviously. Dylan Mills, Spihar. But a lot of them played their last hockey. And it's a very emotional time for everybody. So I can't remember the things I said at all, because it's all I tell people is the 3 minutes or 4 minutes of winning a state tournament is something you just don't experience every day. It's incredible. And a lot of people coach a long time and never experience it. Right. So it's a special time for the community, the school, the kids, the families, parents, relatives, and the coaches.
Yeah, and the good feeling must have lasted for
all summer.
All summer.
Oh yeah, you'd be going out and people would be doing, I saw this or I saw that.
Yeah.
At Spihar, what unbelievable! It was a talk until the following season.
So getting back to Spihar, I think at the time that he scored his 9th goal in that tournament, that put him at the top of the highest scorer in the modern era. Do you happen to know, does he still hold that record?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
But I've coached a lot of really good players, and I've coached a lot of players who think they're goal scorers. And in my career, I always tell kids that I've coached 2 goal scorers in my 42 years of coaching high school hockey. 2.
Okay.
One's named Dave Spiar.
Sure.
And I'll tell him how many he scored, like 53 in a year. 53.
Yeah.
Most kids don't even get 53 points.
If you score 53 goals in an NHL season, that's amazing. And look at how many more games they play.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then Garrett Worth.
Okay.
Was another one that I coached, and he scored 51.
Yeah, yeah.
Those are goal scorers.
Yeah.
Okay. And I can't tell you how many Spies scored in his career or Worth scored in their career, but they were clearly goal scorers. They're the kind of guys that were game changers that I was fortunate enough to coach. So
yeah,
there are not many walking around.
Do you think Do you think that Spihar's college or high school record puts him in the conversation about the best high school player in Minnesota history? I mean, obviously John Mayasich played for Eveleth back in the the 40s and 50s, and he's got all the records for scoring and all that stuff. But the first championship game was played in 1945. But is he at least in that conversation as far as you're concerned?
I don't think there's any question.
Yeah, yeah.
I've been to 18 of them. Okay, 19 actually with the Denfeld one.
Right.
And I never saw a player like Spihar.
Yeah.
I never seen a player like Spihar have a tournament like that. And what people don't realize is his senior year, the first game of his senior year, he scored again a hat trick.
Yeah. So consecutive games with hat tricks, yeah.
On the highest level.
Yeah. So, okay, you say that these goal scorers are not, they're diamonds in the rough, impossible to find. What would you say makes a good player? like a good player that's got all of his fundamentals, his skating, his stick handling, his quickness, his mental toughness, his physical toughness. What's that one quality that a goal scorer possesses that those others don't necessarily possess?
I think the biggest thing that separates players is hockey IQ.
Okay.
With the puck, without the puck. Spear was so good at getting open and getting open at the right time. That's hockey IQ. Mm-hmm. He had great skills on top of the scoring ability. But again, the thing that I see separates the top players from just an average player. There's nothing wrong with average players.
No.
Most of your players are going to be average. Mm-hmm. And but is hockey IQ.
And is that something that's instinctual, or is that something that can be taught?
Some of it can be taught. A lot of it's instinctual, and I think personally, I know Spee spent a lot of time on the outdoor rink.
Yep.
I know he's watched a lot of hockey. I think it's and I that was one of my son's, Jake's, biggest assets. He was a terrible skater, Jake was. He had great hands, but he had great hockey IQ. And I think his hockey IQ was the reason. He was 5'8", so he wasn't that big. So his hockey IQ was what separated him from the other players. Mm-hmm. Dom Totnato he played with. He's playing in the NHL. His hockey IQ was off the charts.
Yeah.
And so you see that on players. It's just some have it, some don't have
that
it.
ability.
Yeah.
97, you win another state championship. So you had been finished in third place in 96, kind of like the hangover from the 95 season. Runner up in 97, but then you broke through again in 1998. So were there any players that were freshmen on the 95 team that actually won two I don't want to say rings, but 2 state championships with you?
Dylan Mills.
Okay.
Dylan Mills he played for me as an 8th grader.
He did, yeah.
After we won this championship, we lost to Apple Valley in the longest high school game ever.
Yeah, that was the 5 overtime. Yeah.
Just a great game. Just a great hockey game.
Yeah.
But, we just had a great run of players coming through at that time.
Yep.
That from the net out, we were very fortunate to have. And again, the 91 team had a lot to do with that. These kids wanted to do that. Mm-hmm. And back then I didn't have to worry about kids going to play juniors or kids going here or going there. I mean, you could imagine the calls Spihar would have gotten.
Oh, yeah. Right.
And Dylan Mills and all these players. They stayed, played with their friends, and we had a string of athletes going through Duluth East in all sports, really. And we rode it pretty well.
There were basketball players like Rick Rickert. And was there like a Voigt or something like that was also a really good basketball player at that time? And
Rickert, I mean, you could hardly get in the gym to see him play. It was incredible, But that was just, again, a lot of athletes going through the school at that time.
Yeah. Okay, so I want to, I'd love to sit here and continue to talk forever about this stuff, but I wanted to just ask you some more basic questions about your coaching philosophy. You mentioned that toughness, mental toughness, physical toughness is a big part of what you teach or the Mike Randolph brand of hockey. How do you think that's different than, say, some of the other coaching styles that you see out there?
Well, there's no right style or system. Mm-hmm. See, terminology I use with my players is style is what you do with the puck. System is what you do without the puck. There's a lot of great coaches out there, and I've learned from a lot of them. It's just something that I think you have to have a very high compete level at this level to be successful. If you don't have it, you're not going to be successful. You can have all the fancy stuff, but at the end of the day, when it comes playoff time, it comes down to who wants that puck the worst and who will do whatever they can to help their team be successful. And they let you play at that time of year, I think, more than the regular season, because they don't want to be the part of them ending your season.
Sure.
If you look at the state tournament, single A and double A, they let those kids play. The penalties they call are obvious, and they probably do because it's going to be on a replay, and you better be right.
Yeah, that's as it should be too.
As it should be, yeah. So I just emphasize, work hard, compete hard, stick together, be a great teammate, and we'll be fine.
How do you go through the game preparation process? I mean, like, when do you start looking at the other team, and so what's your personal routine for game preparation?
I do a lot of stuff during the summer. I've gone through, like, for next year, because I'm not familiar with who Northern Lakes played.
Yeah.
And I've gone through their rosters. I've gone through who graduated, who's coming back, their goalie situation.
Always big in the northern in that area. There's this who the goalie is going to be is a huge question, right?
Yeah. So
I know our goalie last year got hurt, and they wound up having to have a position player in goal.
Yeah. Well, that's what you're fighting.
Yeah.
That's why they're single A programs.
Right. Yeah.
And so I don't want to go into the season. Like, after this season, I'll know everybody way better.
Yeah.
A lot of these teams, I don't even know where they are, much less who's on the team. So I'm all summer getting familiar with what we're up against and who we're playing against and who looks like on paper to be a great game where we'll get a good measuring stick. I'm a process-oriented coach, not outcome. We stay in the process, so that all that matters to me is the first playoff game. We're healthy and we're ready to go. You're not going to play the second playoff game unless you win the first playoff game. So that's the time of year where you just take one at a time. So it's never ending for me. I'm just a hockey crazy guy. I'm really into the NHL.
Are you?
Yeah, I watch. Well, they're the best.
Yeah.
They're the best in the world.
They are.
The best players, the best coaching. I really study the game. I'm a huge Paul Maurice, what he did in Florida.
Yeah.
I'm a huge fan of his.
Yeah.
To be able to do that at that level, to get 23 guys to buy in to what he thinks is the best way to be successessful, and they go on and win a cup, is very, very impressive to me.
Yeah. I was pulling for them too.
And he sat in Winnipeg and couldn't get it done.
Right.
He sat in other places, and he finally got it last year. And they were a fun team to watch, a really fun team. You talk about a compete level, and you talk about toughness, they were it.
Right.
So
ultimately, that's going to be successful at any.
So I watch that till the Stanley Cup's over, and then I'll go and watch, like the NHL Network. I'll replay a lot of the games, and if there's a really good game, I'll watch it again. So it's a year-round gig for me.
Yep.
I really enjoy it. You can run your summer stuff, June and July, which we did. We were actually running in Brainerd because we couldn't get any ice at Breezy because they're so busy.
Yeah.
So it never really ends, Zach. I just I find something to do and get ready for the season. And
you must love hockey, obviously.
I love hockey.
So you just continue on with it.
Yeah.
All right. So the communities that you're drawing on now, you're coach at Northern Lakes. This is going to be your first year there. So it's Aiken, Crosby, Ironton, Pequot, and Pine River, Bacchus. So what are your goals for the upcoming season, and what else can you tell us about the team that you're going to be coaching this year?
Well, the goals for this year doesn't change. Our goal as a staff is to try and get to the state tournament.
Yep.
As far as what we saw during our camp is we saw a good mix of players. We're very excited about the potential of this group. They were fun to coach, tough kids, compete hard, kind of kids we were looking for. You don't have a lot of depth at that level, single A level.
Yep.
Like, we won't be cutting anybody. Obviously, the better kids will play more than the other kids.
Sure,
but
sure.
We like what we saw. And we had a real good scrimmage setup. We went to Egan and scrimmage Rosemont, Hopkins, Egan, and somebody else. And it was a good tournament. And then we went to Proctor's tournament, because we wanted to see these guys against other kids, not just against each other. So we got a good read on.
As in early this summer?
Yes,
Okay.
like the end of July, last 2 weekends in July. So we got a good feel on seeing them at a compete level against other teams. And we're just really glad that we did our summer stuff, because they got to know a little bit about us and we got to know a little bit about them. And I have an assistant coach named Tom Klein, who's coached for like 40-some years. He coached at Minnetonka. He coached at Wayzata. He coached at Hopkins. He coached at a couple colleges. So he's got a lot of experience, and we know each other a lot. Way back in '91, he had a tough team in Minnetonka, and I had a tough team at East, and we had a great scrimmage. And we got to know each other from that point on, and I couldn't find a better assistant. He's coming with me.
Yeah.
So I don't have to look for an assistant.
Right.
He works with the D and he works with the goalies, and he does a great job. And so we're both really excited about this team and working with this team and being able to coach there.
When's the first game this year?
I think it's the last Tuesday in November, whatever that date is.
Okay. All right. So as we kind of get close to wrapping up here, Lauren Grosso is the man with whom you currently share the record for wins, 707.
Good guy. I know him personally.
That was what I was going to ask you. Is that what do you have to say about him as a coach, and did you guys ever play each other?
We actually played each other in a state tournament, and I don't think we might have played each other during the regular season, but not too often. But I know we played in the state tournament, and I've known Lorne for a while. We connected. They had the Maroon and Gold, I think it was called, where all the seniors played, and we coached a team together up in Grand Rapids, and we got to know, and we roomed together, and we got to know each other really well. And all we did is talk hockey for a whole weekend. He got me into country music. I didn't like country music, but he wanted to always
You were more
listen
into
to
rap
country.
at that time, or
I don't remember what I was into, but it wasn't country.
Yeah.
But Lorne got me into country,
Yeah.
and we stayed connected from that point on. We exchanged ideas and drills and everything about hockey, and we followed each other even more closely. But there's not a better guy than Lorne Grosso. So he called me last year. We connected again, and he was giving me a hard time. He says he's gonna get back into coaching, I don't break his record.
Yeah. How many more years do you plan to coach?
I don't like to put number of years. Right now, I feel very energetic about it. When I'm not excited to go into the season, and I don't feel that I can connect with kids, I still believe that between TK and I, we can make a difference in kids' lives. I've got a ton of text messages, emails, cards, and whatever from players expressing to me the impact I've had in their life to this day. And that makes it all worth it. And as long as I can continue to do that, and feel like I'm doing that and I'm having fun and I'm excited about it, I'll continue to coach.
Well, Coach Mike Randolph, I just want to say personally congratulations on what an incredible career that you have, and I want to wish you the best of success as you go forward coaching with Northern Lakes. And it's been a real honor to meet you today and get to know you. And thank you so much for being on the podcast, and we wish you the best of luck in the future.
Thank you so much for having me and coming to Duluth for this. All right.
Yep.
Thanks, Zach. Appreciate it.
All right. Thank you. And don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. Thanks very much.